Curiosity AIs. Roman Civil Wars. The civil war between Pompey and Caesar, a struggle for the soul of Rome. In 49 BCE, Rome, the mighty republic that had dominated the Mediterranean for centuries, was teetering on the brink of collapse. Two titanic figures, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, known as Pompey the Great, and Gaius Julius Caesar, were about to engage in one of history's most defining conflicts. This war would not only decide the fate of these two men but would also mark the end of the Roman Republic and the birth of the Roman Empire. Pompey and Caesar had once been allies, part of a powerful political alliance called the First Triumvirate, which also included the wealthy Crassus. Their collaboration seemed to consolidate their power, but underneath lay the seeds of conflict. Crassus, known for his immense wealth, served as a balancing force between Pompey and Caesar. But his death in 53 BCE, during the disastrous campaign against the Parthians, shattered the triumvirate and left Rome divided. By this time, Caesar had achieved spectacular victories in Gaul, expanding Rome's territories and earning immense popularity with his troops and the Roman people. His campaigns were not just military conquests but also political tools. His success in Gaul increased his standing, alarming the Senate and Pompey. The Senate feared Caesar's growing influence, while Pompey, once a close ally, now viewed Caesar as a threat to his own supremacy. Caesar's command in Gaul was coming to an end, and according to Roman law, he had to relinquish control of his legions before returning to Rome as a private citizen. The Senate, led by many of Caesar's enemies, including Pompey, ordered him to disband his army and return. However, Caesar knew that returning to Rome without the protection of his army could result in his prosecution or worse, his death. His choice was clear: submit to the Senate's will or defy it. In January of 49 BCE, Caesar made his fateful decision. He crossed the Rubicon River, a small boundary between his province of Cisalpine Gaul and Italy proper, with the words, "Alia I acta est," the die is cast. By crossing the Rubicon, Caesar was committing an act of treason against the Republic, as it was forbidden to bring an army into Italy without Senate approval. The Rubicon crossing triggered the beginning of a bloody civil war that would engulf the Roman world. Upon hearing of Caesar's approach, Pompey, who had been given command of the Republic's forces by the Senate, hastily left Rome for the south of Italy. Though Pompey had legions loyal to him, they were scattered across the provinces, and he lacked the immediate strength to oppose Caesar's swift advance. Caesar's speed and tactical genius allowed him to capture several key cities in Italy with minimal resistance. However, Pompey was no mere politician, he was a general of great repute, having secured victories in the east, against pirates, and in the Mithridatic Wars. He knew that engaging Caesar in Italy would be disastrous. Instead, Pompey and the Senate retreated to Greece, where they hoped to gather reinforcements and use their control of the Mediterranean to cut off Caesar's supply lines. Caesar, now in control of Italy, quickly turned his attention to Spain, where Pompey's loyal legions were stationed. His famous words, "I am going to Spain, for I must go to face an army without its general before I face a general without an army," demonstrated his strategic brilliance. In a matter of months, Caesar subdued Spain, depriving Pompey of critical forces. In 48 BCE, Caesar turned to Greece. Pompey had amassed a formidable army there, comprised of Roman legions and allied forces from the eastern provinces. The two armies met near the town of Pharsalus. Pompey's army outnumbered Caesar's 2-1. Many believed Caesar was finally about to meet his match. The Senate, confident in Pompey's victory, even began planning the post-war arrangements. But Caesar's tactical ingenuity once again proved decisive. In the Battle of Pharsalus, despite being heavily outnumbered, Caesar used a combination of discipline and clever maneuvering to outflank and defeat Pompey's forces. Pompey himself fled the battlefield, escaping to Egypt, where he sought refuge. Tragically for Pompey, the political winds in Egypt had shifted. Egypt's ruler, the young Ptolemy XIII, saw Pompey as a liability and an enemy of Caesar. Hoping to curry favor with Caesar, Ptolemy ordered Pompey's assassination. Pompey was lured ashore and murdered by a former Roman officer under the orders of the Egyptian king. When Caesar arrived in Egypt days later, he was presented with Pompey's severed head. Though Caesar had triumphed in the civil war, he reportedly wept upon seeing his former ally and son-in-law's remains. The gesture of killing Pompey had not pleased Caesar, who valued honor, even in victory. With Pompey's death, Caesar's victory in the civil war was all but assured, but his challenges were not over. He still had to deal with Pompey's sons and other remnants of opposition across the Roman world. Caesar's campaigns took him to Egypt, where he became romantically entangled with Cleopatra and installed her as queen. He then moved to Asia Minor, where he quickly defeated King Pharnaces in the famous battle that inspired his words, Veni, Vidi, Vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. Despite these victories, the civil war continued to flare up, notably in North Africa and Spain, where Pompey's sons tried to rally the remaining forces. Caesar pursued them relentlessly. His final major battle came in 45 BCE at Munda, in Spain, where he crushed the last remnants of Pompeian resistance. By the end of 45 BCE, Caesar stood as the unrivaled leader of Rome. The Senate, now fully in Caesar's grasp, appointed him dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. The Roman Republic, as it had existed for centuries, was effectively over. Caesar's rule, however, was short-lived. In 44 BCE, he was assassinated by a group of senators, including his friend Brutus, who feared that Caesar's power would lead to the establishment of a monarchy. The death of Caesar did not bring peace to Rome. Instead, it triggered another series of civil wars that eventually culminated in the rise of Caesar's grandnephew and adopted son, Octavian, who would become Augustus, the first Roman emperor. Thus, the civil war between Pompey and Caesar marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. It was a war not just for power between two men but a struggle over the future of Rome itself. In the end, it was Caesar's vision of a unified Rome under the rule of one man that prevailed, leaving a legacy that would shape the world for centuries to come. If you like this content, please consider subscribing.